Hey, what's up everyone? It's Dustin. Hi. I haven't seen any of you guys in forever. I haven't made a video. Someone asked me to make a video about my slicer, or which one I use and all that kind of nonsense. So I made a video a couple days ago and thinking, oh, it'll be a quick one. It'll just show you, here's all the settings and all that. And 40 minutes later, the video's finished. And yeah, it was a 40-minute video. And it was really boring. So I'm going to try to make this one quick, and I'll probably going to edit the long one and send that out later. That goes more in depth. This is going to be more so like these are the settings, and I'll kind of talk about a few things, but I'm going to try to make this more like these are the settings. Copy them if you want, and in depth will be later. So this is a short version. Yeah. Anyway, I use Cura 15.04. It's not the most current one, but it's the one that apparently works the best right now. Cura is going to be doing something else, I guess, with some of the newest one that's going to be coming out is going to have better support algorithms or whatever the nonsense is. I'm not entirely sure. I'm not really in on the current, whatever's going on, but this one's the one that I've been using for a while, and it works really well. It's not the one I've been using since I got the printer because it hasn't been out since then. I think it was 14 point something another when I originally got the printer that I was using. If you are brand spanking new to 3D printing, if you are just now building the Prusa i3, like the one I have on my channel, or any other 3D printer, I don't recommend you get this slicer if you are building the printer. This slicer is made for Ultimakers. So if you have an Ultimaker printer or any pre-made printer, this will work just fine. But if you're building one and you want to be able to do troubleshooting and all that, Repetier-Host is a lot better of a slicer for troubleshooting and all that kind of nonsense. You can do the manual controls and all that kind of crap. Shut up, phone. So I recommend that for starting out. Once you have gotten everything working, you know it's all working, this is a better slicer. It's a little bit faster, and I think it does a better slice overall. It's not only faster to actually do the slicing, but also it does a faster G code. Like the prints don't take as long, and it usually makes a little bit more sense compared to the Repetier-Host one. Usually there is a setting in Repetier-Host you can change to a Cura engine, but I believe it's a older one, and it's not quite as good as just having the actual program like this. But you can try that one out. That's what I used to do before I got Cura. So these are all going to be settings that I use for my Prusa i3, the Folger Prusa i3 in the video, the review. This is what this channel is famous for, I guess. So these are the settings that I use right now. Some of these settings I've still play around with here and there. Some of these settings depend completely on the model. But yeah. So anyway, first thing you should do if you download Cura is go up to Machine and hit Add New Machine. Hey, look, my recording nonsense. And it'll say Add New Machine Wizard, blah, 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 hit Next, and then pick which one you have. If you happen to have any of these Ultimakers or whatever, pick that, and that's going to preset all the nonsense for you. Otherwise, if you have the Repetier Prusa i3, hit Other, hit Next, and then select the Prusa i3, which should be right there. So Prusa Mendel i3, then there's also the Mendel if you're doing other other RepRap printers. There's a couple other ones that I've never even heard of, but yeah. So you're just going to click that and then hit Next, and it should add it. Yeah, so it's going to be ready, blah, blah, blah. So these are going to default you to pretty good settings automatically. Of course, I've modified mine around a little bit to be a little bit better for me, but that'll give you settings that are meant to work for it. It automatically will add in the size of the bed and all that kind of stuff. So these are all going to be quality settings that I'm messing with. So layer height, I always do 0.2. 0.1 is doable on this printer, but I don't ever do it. Shell thickness, 0.8 right now. That's just the outer shell of the actual print, the sides and things like that, how thick it's going to be. So 0.8 is going to be 4 layers thick if it does it correctly. Not always. Usually it's 3 rounds because it's not exactly 0.2, even though it's 0.2 layer height, it's not 0.2 thickness, but that does kind of depend on the layer height. It may be more or less. Infill is going to be all this nonsense. I should have mentioned enable retraction. I have that on, and these are my retraction settings. from this retraction setting. I believe there's one more in the advanced tab, but these are the ones I'm using. At any time you can pause this thing and copy it. These are what I use and these work for me. So I'm just going to tell you, these are all tested and these work for my printer. If your printer isn't perfectly set up or anything, it may not work, but this is what works for me. Infill, bottom thickness, top thickness is 0.6, so that's going to be 3 layers thick on the top and bottom, which is just fine for me. You may want to increase that if you need more structural integrity on the tops and bottoms of whatever your item is. Fill density, 25%, that changes part to part. 100 is better for it to be strong, 0 if you want it to be hollow. These are the settings that I have. I don't think I've ever changed any of this. That's just the expert config settings. Speed and temperatures, those are the really important ones for 3D printing. Unless you have a printer that's made for speed like the Ultimaker, it's really good at running really, really fast. The Prusa i3 is not really. So I run my print speed at a max of 70 for actual printing that isn't defined in the advanced tab. I'll show you that later. Printing temperature, 195 for PLA with bed temperature of 60, both in Celsius. I only use PLA. I don't print in ABS. If you want to do ABS, I think it's like 230, 240, and then between 70 and 100 for bed temperatures. But these are what I use, and these work for the material that I use. I use Hatchbox material. They can get on Amazon. I think it's like 20, 25 bucks for a roll. That stuff works really, really well in all different colors, and that's the temperatures that I use for them. Support material, that just depends on the model. I don't use any right now, but it changes model to model. That's the settings I have for the support type expert settings, and the platform adhesion. They're going to be this one. So 330, blah, blah, blah. Filament, if you're using the same printer as me, then 1.75 millimeter is the filament size that you should be using, and flow can be changed. If you're getting too much flow or too little flow, you can change this, and it will put it into the G-code. That can help with problems for some people, depends on what the problem is. Usually I have mine at 100, but occasionally I will put it down to 99 or 99.5, depending on what the problem is. Recently, my printer's been doing really good, and I haven't had to mess with it. The next thing is going to be advanced. This is going to be more advanced settings. Machine nozzle size. The stock nozzle for the Prusa i3 is going to be 0.4. If you have a custom nozzle or a different one, then you will have to change this accordingly. Retraction speed. This is going to be whenever it's moving from different parts and it's not actually printing, it will retract it up so you don't get any leakage onto anything. How would I say this? It basically retracts the filament up into the extruder so it doesn't leak out everywhere and make it really messy. If you're having problems with stringing between areas of a print, I'll see maybe insert picture now of strings. If you're having problems with that, then the retraction you may want to mess with. These are, I think, default. I can't remember. 40 millimeters for the speed, and then distance is how much it'll actually retract up. You can change this. I've had it at 1 before. I've had it at 10, I think, and that you don't want to put it at 10. 4.5 is the default, and it works really well for me right now. But it does depend on the material and the temperatures and all that kind of stuff. But that's default. It works right now. Quality, initial layer thickness. This is going to depend completely on your bed setup. If your bed is level, if your bed is when you set up your bed and you do the whole zeroing it on the z-axis and then you like put a piece of paper underneath it and all that nonsense, that will depend completely to what this number is going to be. They recommend usually that this number is going to be 50% more than what your layer thickness is, so I have it at 0.2. It should be 0.3. But because my bed is not leveled correctly, I don't set it up. It works. I don't know what I did, but I have it working. I actually adjust it this way. That way I don't have to move the Z-stop, the Z-stop button. I don't have to move that. I can just change this number, and it will automatically compensate, which is really nice. Initial line width, you can change this if you're if you're not getting thick enough lines for the first layer. Cut off object bottom if your object is like very slanted on the bottom and it only has like one point of contact. Like say you were printing, imagine a ramp getting printed upside down to where it was only one little edge is touching. If you wanted to sink it in to make it to where it's actually flat, you can adjust it this way. Dual extrusion overlap, I have no idea what that does. Speed settings, these are important. Travel speed 150, that's works just fine for me. It's not printing anything, it just needs to get from one place to another quickly. Bottom layer speed, please put this at a low number. Unless you have an Ultimaker or a MakerBot, or a newer MakerBot, or one of those that specialize in speed, put this at a low number. Trust me, I've known people who have put it to like 50 or 70, just like every other setting, and nothing sticks to the bed, and they're having really bad problems. 20 is actually quite a bit fast for me. Usually I have it at 10 or 15, but I had something I was printing the other day that was really big, and so the first layer would have taken, I think, an hour just for the first layer at 10 millimeter. So I put it up to 20 just to speed it up. Anything more than that, if you're having problems with it sticking to the bed or anything like that, try lowering this first. That's the best thing I can do. Or the best advice I can tell you, other than leveling your bed, obviously. If it's too high or too low, you'll have to adjust that too. Which brings me, if you're with the printer that I have, if it's printing too high or too low, you can actually just turn the Z-axis screws, the threaded rods, you can actually turn them manually while it's printing and adjust it accordingly. It's more of you have to know what the correct one looks like to be able to set it. I can't really describe it to you, but I've done it enough to where I know what it should look like as it's printing the first layer, and so I will adjust it if it's slightly off. Right now I actually have it it's set so perfectly that I don't have to adjust anything, and I'm really happy. But I've had points to where it was so high up I had to sit there and turn the Z-axis to where it's back down to where it should be. You can do it that way as long as you have it set to the Z-axis motors off when they're not in use, which it's a setting somewhere. I can't remember where in the heck I did it, but yeah, that's where you do that. Next ones are going to be infill speed, all this and other nonsense. If it's set to 0, then it's going to be set to that default 70 that we set right here. You can change these. I think in Repetier-Host they are different, but I leave them at 70 because they work. I don't really have any problems. Cooling, I have a cooling fan installed onto my printer. It's a aftermarket one, you have to wire it in and all that. So of course I have it enabled. The Prusa i3 doesn't come with one stock, so and this is the cooling fan that blows directly onto the print, not the one that's on the extruder, but one that you can add that will blow directly onto the print and cool it off as you're going, which is really good for bridges and stuff like that. Minimal layer time basically means if it's a really small layer with like one little tiny dot or something like that, it'll let it cool down briefly before going up to the next one, or else it's going to wobble around and make a mess and it's awful. And these are going to be the settings that are within the little configurator thing, whatever word I just said. I don't think I've changed any of these. Plugins, these are just plugins. I don't use plugins, but you can use these to modify G-code mid print, stuff like that. So pause at height, for example. If you wanted it to pause at a certain layer or at a certain height to change the color or anything like that, you can actually insert it manually in there. That way you don't have to manually stop the print or pause the print from the controller or anything like that. You can actually have it stop automatically. And then whatever that means, I don't know. I don't know how to use plugins, so don't ask me. There should be somewhere on the internet that will be able to do that for you. You can modify your start and end G code this way, so if you want it to do something different than just the stock, then this is where you're going to do it. I haven't modified the start G code. I have modified the NG code just with this little guy right here. All this does is once everything's done and it's about to shut off the steppers, it will push the bed forward to 150, which it can go up to 100 or 200. So I don't want it to go all the way to the edge, but it basically just pushes the bed forward and displays it to me, is what I like to say, but really it's just, it pushes it forward. And then it shuts off all the steppers and all that. So if you know how to work G-code and you want to modify it to do different things after or before the print actually is going, you can do it in there. The start G-code, so something like this, it says printing ... If you have the LCD screen and this is what it says, you can change it here to say something stupid or funny. And that's pretty much the settings. If you've never used Cura, I'll go through how it actually works real quick. Let me see how long shut up, phone. Let me see how long I've been going for. 60 minutes. Awesome. 16 minutes. It's a lot better than the other one. File. It's file. Come on. If you're Windows, you know what file is. Tools. You can print all at once or one at a time. Default, you cannot use print one at a time with the Prusa i3 because you have to manually put in the extruder dimensions in order for that to work. You can have it picked like I do, but it's not going to do anything. I don't have it set up. I don't want to use it. If you do have an Ultimaker or something like that, it will be able to be print faster doing it this way, but I don't have it set up for it. There are guides online on how to do that. So print all at once is usually the stock, and yeah. Machine settings, that's what we went over in the beginning. That's where you're going to want to adjust everything. So machine settings for what I have right now, this is basically going to be the width, depth, and height, and extruder count, and all that kind of nonsense. So G-code flavor, it's already, these are all automatically put in when you pick the Prusa Mendel. You can adjust it slightly because I think you can go up to 200 millimeter in the depth and blah 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 blah. And then this is where you change those printer head sizes in order to use the print one at a time. And then of course if you're connecting it via USB, you can change all that here. These are the other two that I've made for these videos, so don't worry about that. And these are just settings. And then expert settings, you don't really need to use these at all, really. The quick print, which is just high quality PLA, go! I like to use the full settings because it changed it. Hold on. I changed all my settings. Yay, you guys got to see that live. It fucked up everything. Yeah, so basically quick print, blah 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 blah. Expert settings is some other settings. It's got a bunch of different stuff. Basically, it's the basic and advanced settings put together, and there's a couple other things, but I'm not really going to go into detail. Man, none of these are like what it's supposed to be. So ignore this page. Yeah, these aren't settings that I normally use. I'll have to go and fix that. Anyway, if you really want to know how to use this real quick, you just hit load. It's very self-explanatory. Click something, and it's going to put it on there. So that's a part. You have rotate, which you basically click it and it gives you the 3 axes you can rotate it for. Scale, you can hit in here and hit scale and scale it. So 0.5, blah blah blah, or whatever. 2 max will put it as big as it can get in your printing size. And then mirror, if you click it, you can mirror it. So if you can mirror it from the 3 different axes, and that's about it. And then over here you have view mode, which can do a couple different things, which is pretty cool. So yeah, once this is done, so yeah, look, 21 hours, 36 minutes. It automatically slices it with every change you do. That's with these settings. These aren't the settings that I normally use, so that's not what it would be. And then if you have your SD card plugged into your computer, you just click this and it'll automatically save it to the SD card. Else you will have to save it to somewhere on your computer as a G-code and then put it into your computer. Or if you have your printer plugged in via USB, I believe there's a print button and you can just print it from there, just like Repetier-Host. So yeah. So I'm now sitting here editing this video and I realized that my ending was really stupid, so let me end it correctly. So yeah, this is yeah, I use a Premiere and all that. So yeah, that was the Cura settings. I'm going to probably put out the longer video at some point. I don't know if it'll be this week. I said it on Twitter, but who follows me on Twitter? Yeah, I'm going to be doing more 3D printing videos, hopefully. I'm probably going to do a video at some point soon about like why I haven't been making a lot of videos and all that. I've been busy and all that crap and lazy. I've been feeling meh, so that's why. So yeah, I'll be making more videos. Stick with me. I'm now up to like 120 subscribers on this channel. That's like holy crap nugget. Like that's awesome. So thank you everyone who's watching this and you're a subscriber. I'll be doing other kinds of videos, not just 3D printing. I'll be doing other stuff too. So yeah. I'll say goodbye correctly. So thanks everyone for watching. Follow me on all the nonsense that's in the description, all that, links and all that. So I will see y'all later.